Hey, welcome back. So glad you're here. Psalm 90 is one of my favorite Psalms. This is going to be a great study for us today. Very encouraging and really gives us the way to wisdom. And don't we all need wisdom in our lives? Psalm 90, let's take a look at that. Let me switch my screen here. Psalm 90, as you'll notice here, is a prayer that's attributed to, of all people, Moses. Moses here. Moses was living around 1415 BC. So this is probably the oldest psalm in the Psalter, the only psalm that's attributed to Moses. So we probably should pay close attention to it. And what Moses does here in this psalm is he's reflecting on one hand God's eternality, his eternal nature, and on the other hand, our own fleeting existence, how quickly our lives go by. Sobering thought here. And I think Moses has great reason to reflect on this, great reason to think about it. I mean, think of the circumstances, I think, of Moses' life. He led Israel out of Egypt into the desert, only to see a 3-week journey from Egypt to the land of Canaan, just a 3-week journey turned into a 40-year odyssey. Now, by some counts, Moses led out of Israel not just 600,000 fighting men, but about 3 million men, women, and children. When we take everyone together, all the families, scholars think it could be as many as 3 million men, women, and children left in the Exodus. That whole generation died. Moses watched them die. What he would be doing is observing 200 and just over 200 deaths a day. Could you imagine doing 200 funerals a day for 40 years? It would definitely cause you to reflect on life and death. And that's what we see here in this psalm. It's a reflection in verses 1 through 6 of the eternal God and our shortness of life. Verses 7 to 12 then reflect on our need of wisdom and how much we need wisdom given the brevity of our life. And finally, it closes in verses 13 through 17 with a prayer, really, to live in God's favor, to live in God's favor. So I'm going to drop down to verse 12, and verse 12 is our hear verse today. If you're new to what we're doing, I know I have people come and go all the time. So if you're new to what we're doing, we're looking at a verse out of the psalm, and we're hearing what God has to say to us through the verse. Here is an acronym. It stands for highlight and explain, which I'll do first, and then apply. So we take it from Moses' time and apply it to ourselves, and then respond. How can we answer? What can we do in response to this psalm, to this verse? So let's go ahead. Here, highlight and explain verse first. Notice the word teach us there. This is really an acknowledgement from Moses to God, a confession that we can say that wisdom is a gift, that wisdom is something that God bestows on man. It's not something we can gather up, something we can attain without God's blessing in our lives. Deuteronomy 29:4 says that it is God who gives us a heart to understand, eyes to see, and ears to hear. So we need to go to God and ask him to teach us, just as Moses did. And what does he ask him to do? To number our days. Moses is speaking by the Spirit here. He says earlier that we may have up to 80 years of life. Now, don't take this as a limit on your life. Some live well beyond 80 years. Don't think that this is a guarantee. Some die well before 80 years. Rather, it's kind of a general rule or guidance, and it's really indicating that our days are limited, that our days are not numberless, that we have a certain number of days that we're going to live, ultimately only known to God, but Moses here says 70, perhaps 80. And what does he ask for? Teach us to number our days. Why? That we may present to you a heart of wisdom. What Moses is saying here is we want to live the best life we can in the days that are left. That's what wisdom is all about. Achieving the best outcome through the best possible means. That's what wisdom is. So wisdom is to live in God's favor by yielding our time, talent, and treasure to him. That's what Moses is talking about here. So how do we apply this? Well, number one, learn from Moses. Don't waste your remaining years. Remember that you have so many years left, and it's a limited number. Don't be ruled by your fears for the rest of your years. Don't be clinging on to your sin for the years that you have left. Don't be dragging your feet in responding or perhaps resisting God. Rather, I say, commit yourself to be led by his Spirit, to walk step by step with his Spirit, to neither grieve nor quench the urgings of the Spirit within you. Be responsive to him. Speaking of responsive, let's move on to the R. How do we respond to this? Well, let me ask you what I asked myself today as I was reading this, or Monday. How many days do you have until you're 80? I sat down, used Google as my friend, asked how many days do I have between now and I turn 80. The answer, 4,578 days. That's the time I have left. The question before me is, how will I spend them? What is the wisest way? That's the question before you. So I'll challenge you and encourage you and kind of prod you a little bit. Take the time to figure out how many days you have left if you're going to live to be 80. Find out what is the date 80 years from your birth date. Google can tell you that. Then calculate the days from today to that date, and that's how many days you have left. Then ask yourself, what's the wisest thing you can do with those days you have left? God bless you, brothers and sisters. I pray that Psalm 90 helps you to present to the Lord a heart of wisdom.